I read a comment last week, and it's the reason I'm doing this video. Because that comment, I feel, is representative of an entire generation. My generation, Gen X. Let me just read part of that comment to you. I'm already looking at a dystopian future where I'd be better to not be here than to try to live out a world in nursing homes that I can't afford and retirement that I can't afford. I sadly spent my younger years extra income instead of putting extra in the 401k. So my retirement savings isn't what it could have been. None of it looks good right now. What's the point? When I read that, I thought, this isn't just one person. We're the first generation to spend 30 years plus thinking about retirement and still feel behind. And if we haven't saved enough, then we're labeled lazy or irresponsible, bad with money. We feel guilty, regretful, even shame. And I just want to say, enough. The truth was, it's an untested, unprecedented plan thrown in our kid laps without any guidance. Failure. That was a likely event. And then we get to feel guilty about it. So if you've looked at your retirement balance and thought, what's wrong with me? What's the point? Well, there's nothing wrong with you. And you're definitely not alone. So let's take all of this negative energy that we're feeling, that we're even projecting onto ourselves, and transform it into something more powerful. Now, point number one that I want to make is that it was never a fair game. Our parents and grandparents, they had pensions. We know all this. But they also had affordable health care that didn't bankrupt them. In many instances, their homes, that was the only debt that they had. They could live on one income. They could live on a Social Security check. But, contrast, we got the 401k and overnight the whole game changed. Go to school, get a job, raise kids, pay off loans. And oh yeah, in the midst of all of this, be sure to put some extra in your retirement account. The risk, the math, the anxiety, all wrapped up in one Gen X package. It was a plan with a high risk of failure, and we're blaming ourselves for not succeeding at it. Okay, second point is let's talk about how guilt became a weapon. Some people, they're wired to just save. Some personalities, they're more disciplined, more rule following. But even with that, regardless, most of us lived actual lives. Kids and layoffs and recessions, kids that still need our support even when they're grown. Now that's not moral failure. That's life, the way it is today. But the guilt narrative, it still exists. And I feel like it exists to keep you grinding and to keep you spending. It just keeps you believing that if you work harder, longer, then maybe, possibly you can catch up. And the twist is, it's not just society that's doing it. Sometimes the judgment, it comes from our own peers. But spending money, on your kids, on memories, and even on sanity during a difficult economic era, again, that's a human decision. That's not a moral failure. That's not a mistake. So let's talk about what we can do. The third point is the rebellion, the new retirement rules. And rule number 1 is eliminate the guilt. And let's start as well with eliminating debt, if that's a burden for you. Debt is the real thief of freedom, and just start with anything that's over 8% interest. And each payment you make on that, it gets you closer to freedom. Just see if there's an extra $50 that you can put toward those payments each month. Or call your creditors and ask them if they can lower their rates. It doesn't hurt to try, and that move alone can save you hundreds of dollars in interest. And rule number 2 is let retirement be a transition. The old dream was work until you turn 65 and then work no more. And I really wish that for those of us that would like it that way, that we could still do that. The new reality more than likely involves continuing to bring in some kind of income on top of Social Security, especially during the early retirement years. And you probably don't need that much to close the gap between what you do already have saved and what Social Security will pay you and what you need to pay the bills. It might be less than you think. Maybe just 10 to 15 hours per week doing something for extra income. Maybe that alone could pay your insurance premiums or pay for your groceries. And rule number 3 is to use what you own. Now, our parents never had the assets that we have or the access that we have. And we need to start looking at those things through a more modern lens. And to start things such as extra space or spare rooms, technical gear, online skills, access to knowledge on an infinite array of topics, access to all corners of the globe through digital means, an extra bedroom. Even old tech gear can be sold. You can rent out storage space, garages, depending on where you live, part of your driveway. Even old tech gear can be sold. There's a huge market for nostalgia items right now. You can use the access that we have to do remote work or learn new skills that our parents and grandparents could have never fathomed. And rule number 4 is to lower the pressure and lower the overhead. Freedom isn't found in living a luxurious life. It's often found in having less, caring less what others think, caring less about how you appear to others, carrying a lighter load, move somewhere cheaper, downsize, sell one of the cars. Cutting $500 from your monthly expenses could be like having an extra $150,000 in your retirement funds. Every bill that you erase, every service that you decide you don't need, that's like giving yourself a raise for the rest of your life. Realize that every dollar that you spend in your 50s, it's not the same as every dollar that you spent in your 30s. No, it's a lot different now. There's a much bigger opportunity cost now. You don't have as much time to replace it. And if you'll implement any or all of these rules, you can literally shrink your savings target by hundreds of thousands. And you can laugh when you hear someone say, You need $1.6 million to retire. Now, the fourth point that I want to cover is the emotional payoff and how it's not always that we're the problem here. I mean, it's really unfair that many of us reach our 50s and we feel ashamed. But just look at what we've survived. Every crash, every layoff, every tech revolution, we're survivors. We are innovators, and the shame ends today. You don't owe anyone an apology for living your life. You owe yourself a plan that fits for who you are today. And we can't rewrite the past, but we can certainly decide to stop feeding the guilt, because it takes a tremendous amount of energy, mental energy, emotional energy, even physical energy, to feel guilt and regret and shame. And I so want us to be able to use that energy on something more positive. Because Gen X, we don't give up. We adapt. And if you're ready to stop apologizing and start rebelling, then tell me about it in the comments. Are you ready to let go of that regret? And if this video today resonates with you, please share it with someone else. And also, you can take a look at this video next. If you want to retire in your 60s, these are the things that I recommend you do and don't do in your 50s. I've linked it right here. Now, thank you for hanging out with me today. I hope I didn't come across as too hard. Just know that it all comes from the protective nature that I feel for my generation. Have a great week and never lose hope. Bye.